Hello and welcome to a very, very special live episode of Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Friday, October 11th. I'm your host, Tom. The Oregon game in 1 day, the game against Michigan in 50 days. We are live in the state of Oregon, the Evergreen State, Tony. That's what it says on the license plates. We are just outside Portland, Oregon. We'll be down in Eugene tomorrow. We had Tony, it was the day of travel out here. It was many things. Most of them were long. So we're here. There is some news that we landed to report from the Oregon on 3 site Scoop Duck that Jordan Birch, the defensive end that we've been talking about all week long, apparently got banged up at practice on Thursday. Reports on the severity have varied a good bit, which is very typical of this type of situation. But boy, in a game where it feels like there's a lot of areas where Ohio State is kind of even or maybe slightly ahead, if Jordan Birch isn't able to go, and we don't have any idea right now whether he will or won't, but that could be one more significant piece to how this game ends up on Saturday.
Yeah, Jordan Birch leading the Big Ten in sacks, 5, had 2.5 against Michigan State alone. Even if he's not 100% in plays, that still helps Ohio State. So, yeah, this is pretty big news when one of the few spots that you look at Oregon and think, there's a possibility of an advantage there against Josh Fryer, against Josh Simmons. He's just a really big, powerful guy and also very athletic. We heard Chip Kelly talking about how athletic he is and his ability to cover ground and things like that. So if any of that is compromised, that's definitely a bonus for Ohio State. So it's going to be something to continue to monitor. We'll get the availability report. The Big Ten will release that Saturday morning, Friday night. When do they?
Yeah, it's usually Saturday. I feel like we generally
we can't talk about it until Saturday morning.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I want to put all of this in a little bit of historical context. You may remember the last time Ohio State played Oregon back in 2021. Kayvon Thibodeau, big defensive end, was not able to play due to injury, didn't dress. And I think that was a game that a lot of people looked at and thought, well, Ohio State probably has a little bit of advantage. And boy, if Oregon's best pass rusher isn't playing, boy, they are clearly doomed. Ron Howard narrator voice. They were not clearly doomed as that game played out. So this is not, even if Birch doesn't play, and that's far from a given at this point, that's not game over, drive home safe by any means.
No, and they've still, it's Oregon. They're number 3 in the nation for a reason. They have talent across the board, but you lose, if you're to lose him, then that everybody else has to step up and do more. Now, when you're trying to do more, then you might not be doing your own thing, and sometimes we see defenses come together and next man up type of stuff. But in a game like this, where every play is going to matter, you might see players start to stress and try to do more than they need to be doing. Just do your 1/11th. But if you're down, arguably your best defensive player, that creates some shortfalls for not just the defensive line, but for everybody else that he generally impacts. And he impacts the pass defense starts with the pass rush. And we know that there's some concerns with the secondary for Oregon, and you have so many offensive weapons for Ohio State in the passing game. To lose that, if in any way he's compromised, that initial piece of the pass defense would be very significant.
Very significant, because you mentioned the pass defense and the secondary and potentially concerns there. One of the storylines that some of the Oregon players were getting asked about this week was Jabbar Muhammad, who is one of the outside corners for Oregon. Very, very talented player, but listed at 5'10", which is 5 inches shorter than Jeremiah Smith is listed. And he's someone who may be asked to cover Jeremiah Smith. Even if he can stay with him speed-wise, technique-wise, all that kind of stuff, Jeremiah Smith can go up and get it against just about anyone if he has a 5-inch or, sometimes you kind of have to put the air quotes around 5'10" when guys are listed at 5'10" in the notes. that is potentially a concern. That's one of those things where the longer the secondary has to cover, the more you potentially see issues cropping up for Oregon. And if the pass rush is hampered because Birch is less than 100% or not able to play or whatever the case is, that you might see that play out in terms of, boy, now you're seeing issues in the secondary.
Yeah, and you can maybe stretch the field more with that and get a little bit deeper, get away from some of the safeties, that sort of thing. So, yeah, we will continue to monitor this. I know I'm sure that the Oregon boards are going crazy with this news, and it's one of the few players that they really, really don't want to lose. And it's always fascinating when you see reports like this because it ranges from stretcher to he walked off on his own, and everything in between. Because for some people that are seeing this, it's like it's the end of the world. So that's how they're going to project it, and that's how others are going to receive it. And then you've got to get some adults in the room to be like, yeah, well, it was just this is all that we saw. It's okay, but also sometimes some of those adults are trying to put out a fire that is an actual fire.
Yeah, you do have also the football coach tendency towards not letting information get out that might be beneficial to the opponent to know that, hey, this guy can play, can't play, he might be limited, whatever. So then the tendency is a lot like in the weeks before any pro draft. This team is looking at this. Oh, is that what they're telling you? Okay, sure. Are they directly incentivized to not tell you the truth? Why, yes, they are. So even if you do get, hey, this might be a little hysterical on one side. Hey, this might be a little misleading on the other side. And frankly, how often does it seem like a big game like this, a game that everyone's all hyped up about, there's always a rumor about, oh, so-and-so broke his leg in practice. And every time it feels like there's a rumor like that. And 80% of the time it's nope, it just was some random person on Twitter with 12 followers tweeted something out and everyone freaked out because everyone's so on edge on the edge of a big game like this. So there seems to be more credence to this than there is just random Twitter guy. But, the severity of that, we will see. That feels like something that could impact things quite a bit because, boy, the game in the trenches is going to be that's going to be where this game is won and lost. Can Ohio State run the ball on Oregon? If they can, boy, that opens some things up for the Buckeyes. And you look at the Ohio State offensive line, they've been better. They've really improved over the course of the last month. The Oregon defensive line is good, but not world-beating. And it feels like if Ohio State they don't have to be able to run the ball for 7 yards a carry. If they can just run the ball for 5 yards a carry, that feels like that goes a long way towards making this an Ohio State win.
Yeah, it's controlling the line of scrimmage. It's controlling first down, allowing you to do whatever you want on second down, being an unpredictable offense in that way. And so the defense can't lean one way or the other as to what you're going to do on second down, third down. And so, starts with the run. And what I think will happen and what I know can happen is when that run is effective early on, it just continues to get more effective as the game wears on. And unless there are second half adjustments where things just get shut down.
Sorry, I'm just looking at the comments. I just found the
only thing people are talking about.
Yeah. Sorry, the lighting in our hotel room is super weird, and there's 3 different colors of light, not including the natural light. Yes, so sorry.
Oh no, it's your deep voices.
Right
now.
Are they?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure that out.
Oh well, all right. Well then,
that happened one of the post games a couple weeks ago, but it was for everybody.
There was. Yeah, so
it was like Ryan Day talking about Will Howard.
Oh yeah, so we're in Oregon, and everything's different here.
What we need is some helium balloons to even things out.
There you go. When isn't that the solution? Yeah. Okay. So our voices sound the same to us. So I'm assuming, as always, this is probably a Kevin problem.
No,
so
Kevin says we sound great.
It's fine on the camera. I'm checking on the computer.
Yeah, well, either way.
Yeah. I don't mind having a deep voice.
Do we want to spend a few minutes singing some Barry White songs while we wait?
Monetization might.
Oh,
we
true.
can't do that
true.
because it
All
would
right.
be
All
very
right, well,
realistic.
All right. So we'll sorry about gestures vaguely towards whatever.
Yeah.
We'll just keep talking, and maybe our voices will get normal, or maybe they won't, and this will be a
Maybe
wonderful.
just sit up, open the diaphragm.
There you
Or
go.
close it.
Maybe
close it.
Apparently, my voice sounded deep as well. So
Okay.
who knows?
All right. Well,
Blame StreamYard.
yeah.
Blame StreamYard, Tom.
We just need to speed the video up, and we'll get the Alvin and the Chipmunks effect, and then. So I don't know. Maybe we just sound like this now. I don't know. Who's to say? Anyway,
West Coast Tom.
West Coast Tom. Yes, this is. Anyway, I'm not gonna. I was gonna get into the Bad Boy Records thing, and then I thought, you know what, Tony? There's been some news on that front. We're gonna just steer clear of that whole thing.
Let's not talk about it while we're out here.
Let's not. If we've learned one lesson, Tony. Moving on to the other side of the ball in terms of the other side of the trenches, where one of the other big pieces of this game is going to be how well Oregon can run the ball and how well Oregon can control the line of scrimmage. Because if you get pressure and you can't pick up runs in the middle of the Will Zirk super chat. Here's 5 for Barry White. Thank you very much. Can we be who was the guy who did Chef on
Isaac Hayes.
Isaac Hayes? Yes, we could do Isaac Hayes. Yeah. Never a dull day on the Ohio State football beat.
Children.
Moving back once again, circling
Sure.
back to football. I'm really trying to keep this one on the rails. The Oregon offense, if they're not able to run the ball, that feels like that might be, I don't want to say instant doom, but a almost instantly deciding factor, because if they can't run the ball and they're one-dimensional, they don't have the downfield passing game that Ohio State has. They don't have the big playmakers on the outside that Ohio State has necessarily. It feels like if Oregon can't run the ball, that is instantly going to be a major, major problem. And you look at the interior of the Oregon offensive line this year, and it's better, but it's still a question mark. And boy, having Tyleik Williams back might be a deciding factor for Ohio State as well.
Yeah, I don't think not running wouldn't be instant doom. It would be time release doom. So it would be an assured doom coming, but second, third, fourth quarter.
Doom in a new time release capsule.
Yes, very much so.
Doom extended release.
Doom PM. But yeah, I think the talking with Oregon reporters over the week, the concern on the offensive line is that interior, which is a new starting center who was a guard and 2 guards who have never really been all that impressive. Mm-hmm. And so those are the guys that are going to be handling Tyleik Williams and Ty Hamilton and whoever else gets in there, and the rushmen, whether it's Caden Curry or Kenyatta Jackson or whomever, Jack Sawyer that they throw in there on passing down. So I think the more that we talk to people and the more we hear from people, it seems like both sides of this thing, both the Oregon media and the Ohio State media, are leaning towards Ohio State in this one pretty decidedly, which is a little surprising to me.
Yeah, I think I started the week thinking Ohio State very close. 24-21, 27-24, relatively low scoring, very close game, pretty evenly matched teams. And I think as I've gone through the week, you keep seeing people who are not the people who always pick Ohio State no matter what, or even Oregon people saying, this is a concern. Hey, this is a concern. And that is at some point that means something. And when you look at the PFF grades on the interior of the offensive line, it's like, that feels like that's a little bit of a concern. And there's just a lot of little stuff. And I think the line is kind of slowly ticking up towards Ohio State. I think the last time I looked at it, Ohio State was favored by 4. But this had been a 1 or 2 point line a little while ago. This is an Oregon team that's very, very talented. One of the most talented teams in the country, but this is also an Ohio State team that might be more talented than anyone in the country.
Yeah, and I guess we'll watch that line and see if it starts creeping more towards Ohio State, even more towards Ohio State. Maybe that lends some credence to the Jordan Birch thing along the way. But
the people in the chat are very disappointed that apparently the issue is starting to resolve itself.
Oh, no.
Or has resolved itself.
Oh,
yeah. No, sorry.
Boo.
Sorry.
What about hold on?
No.
No.
No. No.
Well, darn it.
No.
You remember that episode of Friends where Phoebe has a cold and she's singing, and people love the new singing voice because it's a deeper voice with the cold, and then she loses it and starts to like sound like she did before. People are like, yeah, and she's like, I need this voice back. And so then Rachel or Monica had a cold and she was drinking a cup of coffee, and then Phoebe grabs the cup and starts licking it to try to get her cold voice back. You remember that episode?
I don't, Tony. But can you sing Smelly Cat in the Phoebe cold voice?
I could. And I'm not even going to say super chats or nothing like that.
How many dollars in super chats would it take?
No.
I did see someone asking about a Hungry Huddle episode. We are planning on doing that while we're out here. Kevin sort of addressed this in there. There's a lot of moving parts with this trip because we're staying a little ways away from Eugene, and there's a lot of stuff, and we're trying to center our day around getting to the Ohio State team arrival on Friday. So there's a lot of moving parts here. We are planning on trying to do something while we're out here because we know those are always popular segments, and we enjoy them as well. Mm-hmm. And we do have to eat at some point, so this is not really taking a lot of extra time out of our day to do that. So we will work on that. The other thing I wanted to ask you about was special teams, because special teams is the one area that you sort of look at and you go, other than turnovers, this is the one area where you could see Oregon popping a big play, whether it's a kick return, punt return for touchdown. They've done both of those this year already. You could see that. That feels like one of the areas that for Ohio State, you just have to not screw it up. You just have to be fine on special teams and not have a bad day, because that's one area where if it is a close game, if this is a one-score game late or a 3-point game late or a tie game late, that could be a deciding factor. We have seen special teams decide games against Ohio State in the past.
Yeah, and I don't know how great do you feel if it comes down to Jaden Fielding needing to kick a 48-yarder or Joe McGuire needing to pin Oregon inside the 10. These are things that neither guy's really had to do. Certainly not McGuire, who is punting for the first time as a Buckeye this year. And Fielding, for the consistency that he's had, has never really been asked to do something special or spectacular. And we saw the kickoffs a couple of weeks ago, that did not go well. And the return game, Brandon Ennis has all kinds of potential. He's flashed here and there, but really nothing in terms of the kickoff returns that we've seen from Ohio State since Emeka Egbuka's freshman year, basically. And so I don't expect anything from Ohio State's return game. But the best thing that they can do is not let anything happen with the Oregon return game, and just don't put the ball into the end zone. Pin them where you can. But we haven't even seen, like, Joe McGuire, I don't even know, has he ever outkicked his coverage? Because it's pretty consistent, like 40 yards every time.
Well, when they were talking during fall camp about what they wanted out of the punters, they talked about consistency and a certain hang time and kicking the ball between 40 and 44 yards down the field, because they don't want to have 38 and then 63, because when you kick at 63, it's like, wow, that's great, the ball went way down the field. That's when the returner gets a chance to potentially to get a head of steam up before the coverage can get there. And that's where you kick at 63 and all of a sudden the net is 25 because the guy rips off a 30-something yard return. So yeah, I think that's if this is a game where we do our post-game show and we really don't bring up special teams at all, which has happened a bunch in the past. I mean, that's one of the reasons that Jaden Fielding and Joe McGuire are kind of a little bit unknowns this year. We brought up special teams in the game where they kicked 3 kickoffs out of bounds. But if it's just, the kickoffs are going for touchbacks and the punts are netting 38 yards and there's, the other team has a long return of 15 yards and maybe one, maybe you go 1 for 1 on field goals. That's kind of like, it's just there. It's just, that's just special teams is there, and it's like commenting on the game where the center doesn't have any bad snap. It's like, that's the job. That's what you're supposed to do. If we're not talking special teams, that's probably good news for Ohio State. One thing that is interesting in terms of what they might ask the special teams to do is Ryan Day's fourth down decision making, because he's been very aggressive this year and it's worked out really well. And he has this new analytics company that he's working with that is kind of giving him new data and new information to work on. And so far it feels like that information has been saying go for it more. He has been going for it more. But it's very easy to do that when you're playing Western Michigan. It's very easy to do it when you're playing Akron or Marshall or Michigan State. It's not quite as easy if you're on the road and it's 4th and 1.5 from the 50-yard line and there's 6 minutes left in a 7-point game in the fourth quarter. That's a whole different thing. And he has tended to be more conservative in the past. I am super interested to see if he gets in that kind of a situation. Does he stay aggressive in those situations, or is that a function of lesser competition earlier in the year?
Yeah, well, I think they do want to be more aggressive, but also the analytics gets it gets cross-referenced by gut feel, that sort of thing, and the gut feel can always overturn anything that the analytics say, and that's what coaches will do. I tend to believe that this is the aggressive Ryan Day, that this is the Georgia Ryan Day that we're going to see. But is it going to be the aggressive Ryan Day on your own 45, fourth and, what is an acceptable distance to punt? Is it 4th and 2? Is it 4th and 3?
On your own side of the 50?
On your own 45,
yeah, minus territory. Depending on which analytics system, they have the ESPN analytics, and I think those are that's generally 4th and 3 or shorter. Yeah. It always says go for it. And it's like, well, that's probably broadly true if you average out every program in the nation and you don't take into account personnel, opponent, your team's talent, your team's defense. The numbers that Ryan Day's working off of are probably much more specifically tailored to the Ohio State team. So I don't think you necessarily look at that and go, this is gospel. That's not quite right. It's a little to me like when you're watching one of the ESPN baseball broadcasts and they have the win probability on the screen, and someone grounds into a double play and the team's win probability goes up, and it's like, that is not how that works at all. There's still a lot of junk science and junk data out there around this kind of stuff. So you can't look at it as absolute hard and fast no. But if it's 4th and 1 anywhere, 4th and 1 even at your own 45, and you have a chance to put the game away, you pick up one first down and you put the game away, that one you probably should be going for. We've seen Sherrone Moore from Michigan be very aggressive, even in his own end, going forward on his own 35-yard line in 4th and 1. If you believe in your team and you want to do the toughness thing, and both Ohio State and Michigan have kind of made that a thing, then you should be probably going for a lot of those if it's 4th and inches, 4th and 1 kind of thing.
Yeah, my thought on it is, unless it's the first drive or the second drive, you'll have had a couple drives to see if the team's got it or they don't have it. And I think that really is a major contributing factor to the decision making. If you've been picking up 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, I don't have a problem in minus territory, at your own 40, going for it on a 2 if you feel that you have shown that you're picking these up. Now, if you've been getting stoned, and we are in Oregon, but if you get stoned, maybe you don't do that.
Maybe you don't do that. Yes,
maybe. Do you run a Mecca book on the jet sweep
into the boundary?
Too soon? Still too soon?
Arguably too soon. Yes. Yeah. There's this is a team that has so many options that I think it's going to be hard to stop everything. I think you've got, if the line is blocking reasonably well, and you've got your choice of Travion Henderson or Quinshon Judkins, and you've got Will Howard in the run game, and you've got, hey, maybe you just zip one out to your choice of Carnell Tate, Emeka Ibuka, Jeremiah Smith. That's a lot of stuff that the opponent has to defend all at the same time. And we talked about this on one of the shows this week, I think, about defending the RPO. And you can defend the RPO, but it involves you gotta play man now. So we're going to trust their cornerbacks to play man against press man in a 4th and short situation against Jeremiah Smith, Emeka Egbuka. Maybe, but I don't know that I necessarily think that they do.
Do you think that Will Howard has like a 15 for 34 game in him this season? Because he's been very consistent, and when his completion percentage does fluctuate, it goes from like 67 to 84. I'm just wondering if he's got one of those bad games and it's well below average, like 15 for 34, 170 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and it's just like, this is reminiscent of a Kansas State Will Howard more than an Ohio State Will Howard. I don't know. He hasn't shown signs of that. As we've talked about before, 1 or 2 bad throws, bad plays per game is what he's averaging right now, which means 64 good plays.
Yeah, I don't think a 15 for 34 seems unlikely to me, because unless they're losing and they have to throw, if he's not effective in the passing game, you simplify the throws. They have guys who you can make simple throws and they can make a short throw turn into a long gain in space. But if even that's not working, unless you're down by multiple scores, which is a challenge for a team to get them down by multiple scores, you just, at that point, you're going to run the ball and it's just going to be, okay, you can't do, this isn't working, so we got to do something else. And this is not the Dwayne Haskins 2018 Buckeyes where it's, they can't run the ball. The defense isn't very good. They constantly have to score points, so they just have to throw, and Dwayne Haskins is throwing for 400 yards a week. That's not this team. This team has a diverse enough offense that I don't think you're going to be painted into that kind of a corner. I don't think, unless they fall way behind. If they fall way behind tomorrow, or they fall way behind at Penn State or something like that, sure, maybe we get into that conversation. I don't see a situation where Ryan Day and Chip Kelly see Will Howard throw 20 incompletions and go, more of this, please.
Yeah, even if he has 47% or whatever for a portion of the game, there's always that potential for it. That next throw is going to be the one to Jeremiah Smith or Emeka Egbuka that goes the distance. Same with any of those rushes from Quinshon Judkins or Travion Henderson. That's why, even if this offense is struggling, the chunk yardage that they can get can even so many things out. And some of these drives that they'll go 3 and out, or 4 or 5 and out, you're going to have those, but you got to capitalize when you do get those big chunk plays to put those into the end zone, because you're not necessarily going to get too many 13-play drives in this game, I don't think.
I'm greatly enjoying everyone in the comments talking about how tired we look. We have been we've been up for a little while. We got up at
3.
Yeah, I think my alarm was set for 2:45 a.m. Eastern time. Yeah. And
I feel fine.
Yeah.
No, I don't. I feel tired.
I'm not normally drinking coffee on these evening live shows, but here we are.
I'm glad that we do look very tired. That explains the deep voices earlier. That's just travel, man.
All right. So we want to hit a couple questions.
Yeah, Mika Hanna jumping in. So is Birch heard or just a rumor?
You may have hopped in a little late. So here's what we know, and we're not going to say, oh yeah, we have impeccable sources on this, impeccable sources within the Oregon football program. We're going to defer this to the Oregon On 3 site. That's Scoop Duck, and they said the report said that they were told he did get nicked up at practice, and they held him out the rest of the practice as a precautionary thing. It didn't sound alarming, but take it how you will. And we talked about this earlier. You get the reports where this person is on the verge of needing to go into intensive care. And then you also have the thing that, it just turns out it was just a hangnail. And
yeah, we held him out. We didn't have to hold him out.
Yeah. Everything is precautionary. Yeah. And generally you'll have the initial reports will come out and everyone will get hysterical, and every report gets worse and worse and worse. And then the team, you talk to someone from the team, and the team is incentivized to minimize it because they don't want Ohio State to know that this is a serious thing. Whether it's a serious thing or not, they want to communicate to you that it's not a serious thing and it won't impact his availability for Saturday, because they don't want Ohio State to be able to game plan around, hey, this guy isn't playing if he's not going to play. So the information you're getting it's information. Is it accurate? We compared it earlier to the information you get from teams, before the Major League Baseball draft. The team is going to tell you, hey, we're really looking at this guy. Are they really looking at that guy? Well, are they trying to float someone else down there? Are they trying to mislead you so that the team who's picking behind them doesn't trade up and get ahead of them to take the guy they really want? I mean, you're not incentivized to tell the truth here. You're not under oath. So all of this information I always take with a real grain of salt on these big game week, day before the game, 2 days before the game. There's always a rumor about someone or something getting hurt, and boy, it's very serious, and oh boy, it's going to really change everything. And sometimes it is, but a lot of times it's not.
When we talked about that earlier in the show, I just had flashbacks to the 2020 COVID season.
Oh man,
when every single day there was heard about this test result, and it's like, we got to go chase this stuff down.
Yeah.
I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back to that for any number of reasons.
No, respectfully declined. Yeah, well, that was the season where we didn't get to come out here. We thought we were going to get to come out here in 2020, and didn't. And that was one of many disappointing things that year. But very very glad we're out here. Hoping. I have not heard any reports of the game being canceled, which is good. That is positive.
That would be get all the way out here. 72 hours of travel.
Yep.
By train.
And Kevin just read that Oregon issued 220 media credentials, which I think that was John Canzano put that out. I think he's just johncanzano.com now, but he's a longtime Oregon newspaper reporter. Very, very plugged in. Just to put that in perspective, there were Oregon interviews that we put out a video of earlier today. Just a bunch of clips with Oregon players, and you can see a reflection in the window behind the players, how many people were there. And it was like 8. There's like 8 people standing around Dylan Gabriel asking questions. I tweeted out a picture on Wednesday night from inside the Woody Hayes of Josh Fryer and how many people were standing around him. And it was probably 30, 35, something like, it was a big, big media gathering. This is going to be an enormous number of people, not only because of all the Ohio State people who are out here, a bunch of national people are here for this game. This is the center of the college football world this weekend.
Well, and I do wonder, does that also do the credentials also include the NFL scouts, or is that all separate?
Probably, yeah.
But that's why they're putting people on the roof. Now, I believe it is an open air press box, which is going to be. I've never experienced that before. Apparently, that's
New Orleans.
Yeah, but
it's not open air. It's not open air outside. It's open air inside a dome.
Yeah, but neutral site NFL stadiums, Kevin, get out of my face with that.
Mm-hmm.
This is a road game or just a home game for it is not neutral, Tom, not neutral at all. So I heard, listening to some of the Michigan podcasts that I'll listen to every now and again, people that were out there were just blown away by the Washington scene and the noise, the constant noise. So I'm looking forward to this one on Saturday.
Definitely, yeah. It's gonna be a lot of fun. It's a great venue. It's one of those places you've seen games for years and years and years. Like some really iconic moments in college football, and a campus that Ohio State has not played in. Did you know I wrote a piece this afternoon about interesting things from the game notes? Mm-hmm. Ohio State played in the second ever game at Autzen Stadium in 1967 and has not played here since.
They won that game.
They did win that game 30-0. They won the other half of the home and home in 1968. I think that was 21-7. That was the year Ohio State won the national championship. But they have played 6 times in Columbus. This will be the second time in Eugene, played a couple times in the Rose Bowl and once in the national championship game at Jerry World. So this is a little bit of an unfamiliar venue. Josh Fryer talked about the fact that he had been out here for an official visit when he was in high school. So he's seen a game here. He knows kind of what the atmosphere is like. Carlos Loughlin has obviously been here. Chip Kelly has obviously been here when they were coaching for Oregon. But there's a lot of people that this is going to be the first time they're coming out here. I think that's true of the media folks, a lot of the players, a lot of the coaches. So yeah, that's gonna be a really exciting game.
And it's the same. It's 52,000 or 54,000, which I believe is like the exact same as like Maryland, maybe. Like it's the 13th largest stadium capacity wise. But yeah, I'm sure we're gonna get there and it'd be like this is it. Like
Yeah.
I was expecting. I'm not expecting anything bigger. But you look at it and you're like, how could this be one of the 5 loudest stadiums in the nation? There aren't enough people. But
Acoustics.
Well, and it's laid out really interestingly too, because there's a really big stands on one side, and then there's another spot where in the corner it looks like there's about 15 rows. So I'm really interested to see it. I read something on our board this week that there was an acoustic engineer who designed it to make the loudest place in the stadium the visiting bench area. That the way the stadium is designed, it focuses all of the noise towards the visiting bench area. So.
And where did that person get their degree from?
The Ohio State University. That has been a big topic.
Unbelievable.
Ohio State engineers secretly, or through professional work decades ago, when there was no reason to think that Ohio State and Oregon would be in
sleepers.
The same. There was also some very funny moments during the Oregon interviews, because James Crepea, who works for the Oregonian newspaper, is an Ohio State grad. And both Dan Lanning and Dylan Gabriel gave him some kind of good-natured crap this week about
Lanning too. I didn't see that.
Lanning. Yeah, well, Oregon normally has practice open for at least a short period of time, and he said, "Well, we had to close practice because James is here, so he didn't want to." And Dylan Gabriel asked him who he was rooting for. So yeah, it was some.
That's good.
It's funny. So
it's funny when you coaches can joke with a smaller beat and kind of get away with that, whereas I don't know if people understand the Ohio State beat is, in my opinion, the largest sports beat in America. As large as any other, and as as competitive and all of that. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Brian says you won't be able to hear yourself think. I'm guessing an Oregon fan. That's how loud it will be. Go Ducks. This is a place where Washington and Oregon, I've never seen a game in either of those stadiums, but I can go back to the Keith Jackson years, and Keith Jackson telling you this is the loudest place. Husky Stadium is the loudest place in America. And you look at it and it's open on both ends. It's like, how could that be the loud? Because a lot of the stadium design, Michigan Stadium, for example, is a bowl.
Terrible.
And it just doesn't keep the noise in. So it is not that loud at Michigan Stadium. Beaver Stadium at Penn State, Ohio Stadium, much more vertical. That keeps the noise in kind of in that bowl. These are stadiums that don't look like they should be loud, but people just talk about them as being so consistently loud. So it must be loud, and I'm really looking forward to it. I have all these memories of like the foghorn going off, and how loud is that going to be in person? There's a lot of,
and you're going to be down there, like feeling the full brunt. And if it is an open air, and I believe I've been told it is, we don't really get to experience that because we have some open windows here and there, and it's very quiet. You're disconnected from the game.
Oh yeah,
in a sense.
Yeah.
Whereas if there's no blocking of the noise, we're going to be right in it. So I'm definitely looking forward to that one. Now, I probably won't be able to be heard as because we're up in the press box. We're all just chatting. We're chatty Cathy's. If I tell these youngsters below us to keep it down, we're trying to talk about the game, I'm sure it'll be well received.
I'm so amused by the constant comments about the audio and we can't get the audio right. We're in a perfect acoustic environment where it's a hotel room. There's not a lot of hard surfaces around here. It should be echoing around. It's the Buckeye Weekly podcast. There is
no.
This
is the morning show.
It is the morning show. That's true.
Everything should be perfect.
It should be.
Tom,
perfect.
You even said, and this annoys me a little bit. When we do a live morning show, Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning, presented by TomOrrow, you say it's a very, very special Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning. When we do a live Buckeye Weekly, I was hey, it's Buckeye Weekly.
Well, that's on you.
That's true.
Now that you bring it up, in fact, it is.
Yeah, let's change the
On
subject.
this very special blossom.
All right. Before we find out why it's very special, why don't we we have other
hit the
questions
thumbs
we want
up.
to get? Yeah, hit the thumbs up. Do we have other questions we want to get to? Okay, Fort Wayne Buckeye. Back to the game. With Gabriel having issues in the red zone, I think this is the game where Downs gets his first INT as a Buckeye by baiting him into a bad throw.
You know what? If Caleb Downs didn't get his first interception as a Buckeye against Angels, he's never getting an interception, Tom. It's never happening. But I think with Dylan Gabriel, the interception that he's thrown have been out routes getting jumped by corners, but also with the second one, the one in the end zone was against Michigan State, was a corner dropping like off of his guy and making a really good catch. But I'm not going to be shocked when Caleb Downs gets an interception at some point. When Dylan Gabriel has gone deep a little bit, you're kind of throwing it before he's not waiting like 3 seconds. He's trying to get rid of it quicker and just throwing it up, trying to get somebody to run under it. Maybe that's something that Caleb Downs can run under. But who is more likely to throw 2 interceptions this week?
It's interesting is both guys have talked about the fact that they know they need to be more careful with the football and they don't want to make mistakes. I think the guy who's more likely to throw 2 interceptions is the guy whose team is down. Not that the interception are causing his team to be down, but that if you're Dylan Gabriel and you're coming into this game thinking, I just threw 2 interceptions in the red zone, I can't do that again. I have to be more careful with the ball. You're going to be more careful with the ball because this is a guy who has played a million games of football, 6-year player. This is not someone who's new to the big game environment. He's not going to be overwhelmed by the moment. So he's probably going to be a little more conservative early in the game. If they're down 10 points in the late third, early fourth quarter, and you get to a point where it's, boy, we got to get points on this drive, then you start throwing it into tighter windows, and then you are more likely to have an interception. And that's true if that's Ohio State's down 10 points, and Will Howard has to be in that mode as well.
Well, and it's what Will Howard said when I asked him about towing the line between making a play and doing too much. And he said, you got to capitalize on what is there. You can't force anything. You got to take advantage of what they give you. But it's a lot to ask of a quarterback to go up to the line and then stop and don't go beyond that line that now you've done too much. And that's a lot of the art of being a quarterback. And both of these guys have been able to stop at that line, but also have gone beyond it because they've done it all. They've seen it all. Both guys have said that. But this is still a very, very big game. And regardless of how much experience you have, there's going to be butterflies in this one for at least the first quarter.
Yeah.
And then maybe again in the fourth.
And sometimes it just takes getting out there and getting hit once. Will Howard talks about the fact that sometimes get out there, get popped once, that kind of gets the blood flowing and gets you ready. We were talking earlier about false precision. And I'm looking at the Ohio State line is Ohio State -3, and ESPN's FPI has the Buckeyes 64% likely to win, and Penn State is a 3.5-point favorite, and ESPN's FPI has USC as 52% likely to win. Which, okay, maybe
it's the half point. I think is the difference there.
Maybe. Belton's husband says, I think our running game will get us 3rd and shorts more often than 3rd and longs. I'm assuming that's from the Ohio State perspective, and if so, if Ohio State can stay in 3rd and short and can just stay on schedule, that's going to go a long way towards getting them a bunch of points.
Yeah, when you can do whatever you want on 3rd down, whether it's a short throw, whether it's intermediate, because the way Will Howard throws those intermediate throws, those have been very accurate this season. So it's not like you just need to throw a 3 or 4 yard out. Tom, what are you reading that is affecting you?
I'm reading Ryan's reviews and overviews saying Tony sounds like Andre the Giant. I keep waiting for him to challenge Hulk Hogan to a match at this convention center tomorrow. Tony, we're going to sell you the whole seat. You're only going to need the edge.
The thing about Andre the Giant, plus the French accent, they've made it very difficult to hear. I cannot do a French accent. That is very difficult to hear. I apologize for the voices. The more that I talk, I can feel my voice going away. But the deepness comes from, the internet is a series of tubes and things get compressed, and that's not how we really sound. It's like anytime back when you're playing your tape, you're recording on the tape, and it's like, is that really my voice?
It's ones and zeros.
It's ones and zeros, man.
It's mostly zeros.
Yeah. Walked into that one.
Fort Wayne Buckeye says, is this the game we see either Q or Trey get 20 carries, whichever one has the hot hand? I think this is a game where you could see both guys get 15 carries.
Yeah.
If there is one who's running, one of them is running for 9 yards a carry and one of them is running for 3 yards a carry, they are going to probably stick with the hot hand. This is not one where you're trying to spare people's feelings. And based on what everyone has said, including both of those guys, they're not that worried. Travion Henderson has had a bunch of games where he's gotten 7 carries, and he's perfectly fine with it because they're winning, they're moving the game, they're moving the ball. If one of these guys is running for 200 yards, no one's going to be saying, "But what about me?"
Right?
No, that's not how it's going to work.
Travion Henderson didn't come back for his senior year to get 25 carries against Oregon. Or there's so much more to the season. I think they both know if one guy gets 25 carries in this one, the other guy is probably going to get 25 carries, at Penn State or against Michigan or in the playoffs. Like their time will come, and as long as they're winning and running, like there are no bigger supporters of each of those guys than the other guy. When you watch Quinshon Judkins go 86 yards, Travion Henderson's right there at the sideline, celebrating with him. He's not thinking it should have been me. And we have seen, Tom, in our years of covering this, where do you remember what was it, Mike Weber in the locker room of one of the Big Ten championship game or the bowl game?
That might have been the Cotton Bowl,
where he was legitimately angry that he had maybe 3 carries in that game.
Yeah.
So we've seen reactions, and I've seen Mayan Williams a few years back, not get a carry in a game, and you could see him on the sideline at the end of the game, not happy at all.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like that with either of these two this year. And I'll say, Tom, when Quinshon Judkins transferred to Ohio State, all the Ole Miss people told you, locker room cancer. Everybody's happy to be rid of him. I've not seen anything like that from him at Ohio State.
Well, they also said they could replace him with a series of tubes or whatever they said, and that hasn't necessarily worked out.
It's more ones and zeros.
Yeah, more. Yeah, so that hasn't necessarily been true either. If you're familiar with the Boston Red Sox and what happens to players when they leave the Boston Red Sox, there's always leaks to certain reporters about how secretly this guy is, I don't want to say a Nazi, but not a great human being. It's like, okay, when guys leave, it's sometimes there's a little bit of retconning to explain things away. Big Chevy says, definitely enjoying the extra content for this game. I drive a semi, and you've kept me occupied with something to listen to all week, and especially today. Thank you, and go Bucks. Yes, we are churning out content this week. It's our second live show from our second different unusual location today. The first one we
thought the sound from this show would be worse than the first one.
The first one we were at the Phoenix airport in 2 different locations with a lot of extensive background noise,
right.
lots of guest stars.
It was a Buckeye
on that one, and been popping out a bunch of bonus shows on the Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning feed with interview clips from Ryan Day and Denzel Burke and Josh Fryer and a bunch of the Oregon players. Some really, really interesting stuff on the Oregon side. Dylan Gabriel, very good interview, has some interesting stuff to say. Johnny Cornelius, the starting right tackle for Oregon. He came down to Ohio State or Oregon when he was in the transfer portal a year ago, transferring out of Rhode Island in terms of where he was going to go. Obviously chose the Ducks. So I had a couple sound bites from him, including why what was it about Oregon that made him decide to go with the Ducks instead of the Buckeyes. Jabbar Muhammad, the corner we talked about earlier, talked a little bit about the challenge of covering Jeremiah Smith. Also talked about the fact that, hey, he played for one of his previous stops was at Oklahoma State, where he played for Jim Knowles. So a lot of interesting ties, a lot of interesting storylines. That's all on our YouTube channel. You can go find all that on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. You can also find it on the Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning podcast feed. We're going to probably have a bonus show on the Buckeye Weekly feed. And then Friday, our plan is to be down in Eugene all day long. Lots of coverage down there because I'm sure as interested as I am in seeing all this stuff and experiencing Eugene and seeing what the Oregon facilities are like and all that kind of stuff, I'm sure everyone else is interested in that as well. So we're going to do a bunch of stuff from down there, probably trying to do a Hungry Huddle segment from down there. Lots of content. And, of course, the Buckeyes arriving at their hotel, the traditional Friday hotel arrival live show. We'll have that on Friday afternoon. That's, I think, 2:45 Pacific time, so about 5:45 Eastern time. So figure we'll probably be on 5 p.m.-ish. This is one of these times when
emphasis on
all,
the ish.
all of this is they're flying cross country, and then they have another stop before they get to the hotel. So all of this is kind of, we're going to be playing it by ear a little bit. So make sure you're following us on Twitter. Make sure you're following us on, you're subscribed on YouTube, all that kind of stuff, because we're going to have a ton of content. We don't necessarily know exactly what it's going to be and when it's going to happen. McChicken says, I might join the site just for the deep voices.
There you go.
You wouldn't believe how deep our voices are on the Huddleboard presented by Jeff Ruby's Columbus.
Just imagine what's behind the paywall. Don't how can I say that?
Bomo says this is going to be a good game because everyone will know how seriously special this team is after. This is a team, I mean, this is an Ohio State team that is going on the road against the number 3 team in the nation. And the consensus seems to be Ohio State is more talented despite a very difficult road venue. Broadly, it feels like the consensus that Ohio State is likely to win the game. That in and of itself tells you, hey, boy, in a year when there's been a lot of fluctuation at the top of the sport, I think there are people who view Ohio State as the surest of, not an absolutely sure thing, but the most sure of the different things, different teams in the nation.
Yeah, and showing it to everybody. I think it was Josh Fryer said they would like to show that they've gotten better over the years, over the season. Let everybody know, and I don't think he was the only one that was talking about just showing the college football world that Ohio State is what people think they are, and doing it at a place that not a lot of programs will go. And of course, Ohio State has been forced to go, but they've tried to go before. But it's not a place that is easy to win, and especially if Oregon is as good as they are. It's different if they're down and whatnot. They're not down. They are as in tune with national title hopes as about 7 other programs in the nation. They believe they can win it, and they're certainly not just going to let Ohio State come in and run all over them. But it might happen.
It might happen, but it might not. And we're talking about the fact that there's this consensus that Ohio State is likely to win and all that kind of stuff. Ohio State's still favored by 3 points. This is not a game where this is an absolute lead pipe lock that Ohio State's going to win this by any means. And I still think there's a real possibility this is a 1-score game into the fourth quarter. And there's a real possibility that you get 1 play on special teams, you get 1 turnover from the Ohio State offense. This is absolutely a losable game for the Buckeyes. Not even a question. This is a losable game. Belay says, I truly believe this is going to be a Caleb Downs type of game. He's going to come up big Saturday night.
Well, this is an all eyes on you type of game, and I don't think Caleb Downs minds that at all. And this is going to be a game where the secondary is going to have to tackle, and probably within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage on a lot of these throws. And if you don't, then something big might happen. So Lathan Ransom, Caleb Downs, those 2 guys, I don't know that there's a better duo of any type of position in the nation. And I'm saying that knowing that Ohio State has a duo with Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Egbuka, Quinshon Judkins and Trevion Henderson, Denzel Burke and Davison Igbinosun. I don't think anybody's playing as well as Caleb Downs and Lathan Ransom in terms of a pair.
And we haven't heard them talk about this being a safety-driven defense this year, which is weird because they've talked about it incessantly the entire time that Jim Knowles is there. And now that they have safeties to really drive it, it feels like that's almost getting taken for granted. That these are guys who are doing everything that could possibly be asked, and they're getting asked to do a lot. This is not an easy defense to play safety in, but they're doing it and doing it just so not effortlessly, but just so consistently that you almost feel like they're getting taken for granted a little bit. Market X says this game is going to be exciting, but is it leading to an inevitable part 2 in Indianapolis? Maybe. I don't know if it's inevitable, because if one of the, whoever loses obviously has 1 Big Ten loss. Penn State could run the table. Penn State could, if Penn State beats Ohio State, then Penn State could run the table. And then if Ohio State beats Oregon, then Ohio State's going to have the tiebreaker over Oregon. So it's going to be Penn State, Ohio State in Indianapolis.
I would tell people to root for USC tomorrow against Penn State or Saturday.
Yeah, I mean this is
Indiana.
Yeah, this is honestly, Indiana could be a one-loss team. Indiana could lose to Ohio State and
got a good schedule.
No one else. That's a real possibility as well. So yeah, it's not inevitable. I still think the odds that Ohio State and Oregon, if you're giving me how many times are they going to play this year, and you give me 1.5, I'm gonna take the over on that. But it's not. I'm not taking the over on 2.5.
No.
I think it's certainly possible, but not a guarantee. Final score from Major League Baseball: the Cleveland Guardians 5, the Detroit Tigers 4 at the ALDS going to Game 5. Boy, and there were. Market X had one. Tom and Kevin need to fight like men if it's Dodgers versus Mets. I have a Guardians fan in my house. I have a Tigers fan in my house. There is a way that this World Series, we're a long way away, but boy, there's a way this World Series leads to some domestic strife in my household.
I was going to say something about the last one, but I've now missed it.
The multiple times playing Oregon.
Yeah, it's not important.
Never is. Barbara Davis says these guys are the most entertaining duo reporting in the Buckeyes. We just need to hear Kevin Noonan speak to put the cherry on top. Hilarious. Noonan.
Thanks, Barbara. I really am the glue that holds the show together.
Kevin Noonan, the glue factory. That's why we call him the glue factory.
I got nothing. You're correct. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, everybody.
Anything else? We good?
Yeah, I'm certain.
Okay. So Drowsy Dragon says, what if Indiana, Oregon, and Penn State all have one loss?
The one thing I wanted to say, just imagine Curtis Rourke, quarterback of Indiana, came from Ohio U, had to transfer to Indiana to win a conference championship. Couldn't do it at Ohio. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go to Indiana, and I'm going to win a Big Ten championship. That dude is playing really, really well and has been a great find for them. And not that they found him. They knew who he was.
Yeah.
But in terms of these three-way ties, it comes down to like your record against common opponents, then your record against the top-level opponents of the Big Ten. So Ohio State having Northwestern and Purdue on the schedule hurts them because you want to have a more difficult schedule with better teams on it. But Indiana has UCLA and other lesser teams, Penn State. I don't know exactly what they have, but basically, if you have a better record against the top of the line, this is like the fourth or fifth tiebreaker. It gets distilled all the way down to a coin flip after like the eighth tiebreaker, and so it just depends on common opponents, what they've done against the best teams in the conference, and that sort of thing.
So Indiana does not play the Penn State or Oregon, and they don't think Oregon doesn't play Penn State. So none of those three teams will play each other. So you could potentially, if Ohio State runs the table, each of those teams could have one loss, and it's to Ohio State. And then you get into these really complicated tiebreakers. Of course, Tony, if it is an Ohio State-Indiana tie and Indiana comes out ahead, the Big Ten can always just change the rules. That's the thing that could. That's a thing. Too soon?
On,
Too
Tom.
soon? Too soon?
I apologize to the Hoosier fans that are watching this. That's too low, Tom. Come on.
Anything else we need to get to before we? Oh, yeah. Market X says if Latham was healthy against Michigan last year, I'm almost sure we end up winning that game. Safeties are the best in the country. That's up there with Christian Bryant getting hurt in 2013, where you had, because if he's there and not Sonny Styles on that Blake Corum touchdown, maybe there's not a Blake Corum touchdown, and you can if and but any of a number of plays in that game, but that's certainly one where you saw a couple plays pop against Ohio State, and that was one of them, and that's where you would have had Latham Ransom.
I could also go back to 2006, Anderson Russell going down and then having to put Jamario O'Neal in, and Urban Meyer taking advantage of that one big time against in a national championship game. Not that Ohio State was not equipped at that point to – they were already believing they had won a national championship before that game was ever even played. So they were going to lose that one regardless, I believe.
Jamario O'Neal did not do a great job blocking. What's his name? Jarvis Moss.
Jarvis Moss, yeah.
All right. Michael Loria says, please say you got a dart in your neck, man. I'd laugh my butt off. Boy, we're not the members of the traveling crew that I thought about that today. No. That was, what was that, old school?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
Hey, bro, you got a dart in your neck.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Oh, I think, we just hit an hour. How about that? I was thinking, boom, there we go. We hit an hour. Live show, Kevin Signal's touchdown. Must be time for dinner. All right. Well, thank you guys all for joining us. Make sure you are subscribed to us on YouTube, youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. Hit the bell to get notified. Make sure you're subscribed to us on BuckeyeHuddle.com as well. There's going to be a ton of content coming for you Friday and Saturday while we are out here at Oregon. We flew all the way around, all across the country. We might as well do a bunch of content. That's what I say, Tony. So the great place to find that is at BuckeyeHuddle.com and YouTube.com/Buckeye Huddle. Tony, Kevin, and I out here covering the team. Mark, back in Ohio, covering recruiting. Got our whole team of X's and O's gurus there as well. Might try and get an extra X's and O's segment for you. A little bonus content there as well. Working on that still, see if we can make that happen. But lots of stuff coming at BuckeyeHuddle.com and YouTube.com/Buckeye Huddle. That will do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We will talk to you tomorrow.